speakers are our own Steve and Mirja Wilson. They're going to talk about their epic adventure, and we'll let you take it away from here. Come on up.
Good morning. It's only me here now, but later on Steve comes up. I'm going to talk about everything else, but not the actual trek. And Steve is a picture taker, so he has the pictures and the funnies, but I have the money and the planning. So October 22nd, we went to Annapurna base camp, hiked we were in October and beginning of November when we finished it. And we chose Annapurna base camp versus Everest base camp because Annapurna was less crowded, significantly less crowded. It's a longer hike than Everest, but it's a lower altitude in the end. And we didn't want to have the altitude. And everybody who went to Everest got COVID. And we didn't get COVID. So we were happy about that. So we bought the trip about 6 months prior to the trip because we knew that there was some training involved. Steve loves to train. I don't. I feel like I don't want to give this time months of my life to train for something. So yeah, we compromised. So we trained a little bit in the beginning. The trip started middle of October. We went in the beginning of October, we went to Frisco just to get above 9,000 feet and get climatized. And we stayed there for 5 days and hiked, and it was hard going from here to Frisco elevation. I started doubting. I thought, can I really do this? Considering the age, I thought, might not be able to, but we decided to do it. So I dug into the requirements. What did the organizers really suggested that you should do? And they said you should have minimum of 3 hours a week cardio, hard cardio, 3 hours a week core exercises. And these can't be just doing it easy and getting the 3 hours in. You got to really work at it. And you have to start it 2 months prior. And it was the beginning of October. So I knew that I was really sunk at that. So they required, equipment-wise, they said you need to have a -15 Celsius sleeping bag. And we said, okay, we rented. Last summer when we went to Finland, they lost my luggage for 7 weeks. So we thought that we can't check in the bag because if they lose it, we are sunk. So we decided, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. So we decided that we were going to take a small duffel bag just for poles because I wanted to have poles and poles you can't carry on. So we put the sleeping bags, and then the poles into the duffel bag. Well, we realized we didn't have 15 Celsius sleeping bags, so that's why we ended up renting it. The poles we put in there, toilet paper. They emphasized green toilet paper. So I counted every seat. I didn't want to take too much. So I counted every seat of the toilet. Duffel bag was necessary, a large one, because the servants carry the duffel bags. And they don't take that bags. They just put the string around the duffel bag over their head. Steve is going to show a picture. And carry it that. Then a little day bag that you carry with your necessities, suntan lotion, rain gear, that kind of stuff. Good boots, and they emphasize don't go and buy new boots and then come and trek. You need to break them in. So we had good boots, but our guide did exactly that. Night before we started trekking, he had gone out and purchased new boots. COVID hit Nepal very hard, and he didn't have the funds to buy the boots ahead of him. So when we took the trip, he got the funds, and that's when he could buy his boots. Well, boots broke down, and he kept swapping his shoes with one of our servants, to the point where the servant said, "No, I don't want to have your boots. You keep your boots. I keep my sandals." And then, of course, headlamps were really important because we had to go to the restroom during the night. It got dark, so we emphasized on those. Then the flights. I booked the flight, so we flew from Seattle to LAX to Singapore to Kathmandu. So the total flight time in the air was 24 hours and 30 minutes. The killer was the LAX to Singapore, 17 hours and 15 minutes. And that was a little bit hard. And so we boarded the plane on the 16th, we skipped the 17th totally because we were in there, and we landed on the 18th. When we came back, I was lucky I got some flights from Kathmandu to Singapore to Seattle. So we skipped LAX totally. And that was only 19 hours in the air. So that wasn't bad at all. 22 hours total. It was great to have just 2 to 3 hours layover. So the whole trip, we flew. We arrived to Kathmandu. We stayed there 2 nights. Then we took a bus to Pokhara, 1 night, then 10 days trekking. Stayed a night again in Pokhara, and 1 more night in Kathmandu, and then we came home. So I think we left on October 16th, returned to Seattle November 3rd. I believe. So our trip through consisted of 4 customers. It was Steve and I and another couple from Belarus. And in the beginning, when we had breakfast together, everybody tries to check out the legs and, do they look like hikers? Am I going to be the last one? And it was Diane and Igor. And Igor was Igor. He was fortunately older than we were, but he was Igor, like the name says. Perfect for that. And I thought, oh, here's great. This is great. I can out-hike those guys. Now, Igor had a style that he went slow but consistently. And he took a smoke in the middle of the hiking and went again. And it was just amazing what he did, considering he smoked quite regularly on the trip. Just amazing. Then we had a guide and 2 service. And the service carried, I believe, 8 kilos, 16 pounds. Per person, from a person, so they had 32 pounds of weight. Of stuff, their own stuff, and everything else that they needed for the trip. So that was amazing. So the standard day for the hike was we woke up at 7. Actually, we ate breakfast at 7. 8 o'clock we started hiking. We hiked 5 to 6 hours, about 12:30 to 1. We took an hour or so for lunch, like 2 to 3 more hours, and checked into a tea house. And then just ate dinner and bed. The lodging was tea house. What tea house means is they're not heated. You're lucky if you have a room like Steve and I, if we didn't have to share it with somebody else. They provide you pretty much bed and a pillow and a mattress. And sometimes the blanket. All the surface sleep in the common area where you eat. So during the night, every single flat surface is covered by waters. Bathrooms are usually squat toilets, or if you have it in your room, it's a standard toilet. Most of the time they are outside your building, outside your room, often in a separate room. And the showers are the propane and gas-based heaters that you would go into. So that's my part. Now comes Steve.
How much time do I have?
Not much. It's too fast.
7:30. Oops, okay. All right, so, when you're flying in and you look out over the wing and you see Mount Everest, you know you're in a different part of the world. It's literally the other side of the world. Nepal is, just, north of India and just to the south of what used to be Tibet, China. And so our route was from Kathmandu over to Pokhara. That is 125 miles, 9 to 10 hours by bus, both ways. So I'm going to talk a little bit at times about the China Belt and Road Initiative, because we saw it in Africa, you see it here. Very poor countries don't have any money. China comes in and says, hey, we'll build you this great project. Actually, incredibly good for the infrastructure. However, they're expensive. There's a lot of questions about the Chinese practices and kind of the environmental stuff. They bring their own people. The money all kind of stays with the Chinese construction company and people. And there's just a lot of controversy about it. And sometimes the US gets a little upset, and these poor countries say, well, where are you guys? You know, China comes over and does it for us. But some of these countries are so strapped by debt for this that they'll probably never pay it back. And it's kind of seen as a modern version of colonialism almost, that China gets their foot in there and then they get the minerals and they get the lithium, and they have a lot of power in the government because the government owes them so much at this point. So you hit the ground, city of basically 3 million. It's a big Asian crazy city. We got to thank all these people for going on motorcycles and scooters, because if they were all on cars, my God, it would be something else. But you see families of 4 and 5 people on scooters all the time. Very vibrant markets. You can just buy, you know, anything in the streets. I don't know if you can see here the mess of wires. This is not even that bad for an electrical engineer to be looking up and seeing all these wires just strung everywhere. I think they just send a kid out there with a wire or tell them to plug it into something. I don't know how they understand your electric bills or whatever with this, but it's really something. And the way they move materials around is just, you can't believe I don't know, you know, the rating on a bicycle usually 275 pounds. We have seen probably 600 to 700 pounds. When we were in Africa, they would load these things up with these huge ingots of copper, and the tires are just squished, and I don't know how much weight they're carrying. This is the view from the top of our hotel. First night, nice hotel, and we're sleeping, and all of a sudden, 11 o'clock at night, got the humpa thumpa music coming from the disco about a quarter mile away, and it was just, you know, blaring, so we had to move us to the other side. But you see the rooftops here, and solar panels here. They got the telecommunications all around. But this is a common way that you see, and I had this in Australia as well. These are actually water-filled solar heater. So they run the water through, it's black surface, runs into these tanks, and that's where they get most of the hot water from. Super simple. So for construction, this is a modern building for the most part because they've got cement and rebar here, and then they put the windows in. And in other modern buildings, you see this is all brick, but at least they have the cement and rebar. Most of the buildings are just brick and wood, but just brick. They had a big earthquake there in 2015. There's a good documentary on it. We watched before we went. 9,000 people died. I mean, it just took out an entire valley. It just came down and just took out this village. You know, chunks of rubble everywhere. But when you have buildings that are built out of just brick like that, they go down so easily, just a pile of dust. When they had this thing in Morocco just recently, they go with adobe brick, which is great insulation for heat and cold. But when that brick goes down, it pulverizes, and it actually just wipes out all the air gaps and everything. So it's very hard for survivors. So this is an example of a brick and road initiative. And so this 125-mile drive to Pokhara that we did, 9 to 10 hours both ways, the Chinese are building this big road. I mean, you just got mountains and valleys and rivers everywhere. There's very few flat areas. And they're going to do this. And if they get this road in, it could be 2 hours or 3. It could be unbelievable. Take a flight, actually. Even later, we said, oh, taking a flight. Why did we take the flight? 27 minutes. A plane went down 2 months after we were there. All 72 people killed. I mean, these are very dangerous areas to fly. Everest is kind of the same thing. If you've ever heard of Lukla Airport, look it up on YouTube and watch. They have a little shelf on the side of a cliff, and that's the airport. And man, when you're coming in or when you leave, and I've gone into Midway in Chicago, and it's a little dicey. You're like scraping the roof as you come in and go out, but it's really, really something. So your options there are real tough. Pokhara is kind of known as a really nice place for the more wealthy than other people to go, and so they have a nice lake there and a lot going on. As we're driving out of Pokhara, you start to see the mountains, and it's just everywhere you look. I mean, we have beautiful mountains here, but it's just kind of awesome. They're just huge. They're always covered in snow, so they're just really very bright. And this here, I believe, right ahead is fishtail. If you look at it from different directions, it looks like a fishtail. And we saw this from many different directions, and it was actually one of the main things that up on our hike. So just a little hard to see, but we went from Pokhara about an hour and a half, and then we took a hike up to Boone Hill, back here, up to the top of the Annapurna base camp there. And you can see the elevation goes from, I think, like, what do they say, 1,700 meters up to, I think, 4,100 meters, 14,000 feet, something like that.
40,000 feet?
14.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. That was the airplane part. Anyhow, it was interesting because we could just have gone like this, but we went this way. Now, this is its own route that a lot of people do if they're limited by time. They might just do this in like 45 days and back down. So a lot of tourists would do this route. But I also think they wanted to test us because it's a little more gradual on up, and this is about 10,000 feet. So I think you get there in a couple of days, and then they kind of see if you're doing well or not. And if you're not, they maybe have you go back here. They did the same thing in Machu Picchu. They kind of check you out the first day or two and see if you're really going to be able to do the whole thing. So this is kind of the climbing you do. It is up and down and up and down, and it's very, very steep almost everywhere. They got a little upset. They said, so tomorrow we're going to do 3,000 steps. Okay, 3,000 steps. Well, you did. Well, that's just snack time in the mid-morning. And then you did 3,000 steps up. Now you do 2,000 down. Then you do another 2,000 up, and a 2,000 and another 2,000 up. It's just It's just going on, and you just have to go steady, steady, slow. This is a very common thing you see. It's take a tree trunk that's rotted out. They'll cut it. They'll put this steel around the ends and wire up the side of a building, and it's a beehive. And they have these all over as well. The funny story, actually, check it out. I should have. Our guide, after we're eating one day, we're putting some honey on our toast and that kind of thing, and he says, "Look, be careful. You should only take a couple of drops because depending on where the bees, they got." We never saw, evidence of much of a drug, but if it's some really opium or something like that plant, the bees will go and they'll be sucking this nectar and then they'll knock you out. So he said one of his guide friends that had like 3 drops of honey one day and he was just out for the next 3 days. So Mirja and I had to put like 2 or 3 teaspoons of this in our tea or on our bread. Okay, good luck, man. That was local lore. So again, flat spots here, there's not that many flat spots. So wherever it is, people are out there working, they're doing their sowing, they're, it's agriculture, everything grows there. So you see just everything drying. As you're walking through the village, you're kind of walking through almost like their living room, because they're doing their stuff. Let's see if this will play. So, the local kids are just funny. He warned me that the lag might not be good for a video. Anyhow, this girl just came to the window and she's very cute and was making faces, and I think she just wanted candy or something. So everybody thinks she could do yaks in the Himalayas. Well, we went up to 14,000 feet and that was it. It's too warm for yaks. So these are the yaks on the height of Everest, which is more like up to like 17,000 feet. But for where we were, it was burros. And so again, you see these carrying, these are like 100-pound bags of rice. They got bags of cement on them. You'll see they got the big propane tanks on either side, plus a couple hundred, pounds of rice. Wow. Just a typical area with all these things drying. I think they can just grow anything there. Most of what we ate was the kind of stuff that you just get right there. There were a lot of tomatoes and eggs and lentils, and the kind of stuff that you would get right there, along with some noodles. This is just a little one of the villages along the way. And I don't know how they got this pool table up there, but this guy was very excited that we come in and play pool. And this is, you can't helicopter stuff in there even, hardly at all. So quite a story here, I guess. And this is actually one of the really very, very nice tea houses kind of at the beginning. They get more and more sparse as you get up to the top. You can kind of tell where you are. But you can see the fireplace here and everybody just kind of huddles around it. You go up some stairs here to the upstairs where all the rooms are. Again, very basic rooms, and there's no heat. They don't have the resources for that. They have a lot of wood from the forest and everything around. But so people will hang around here still wearing their jackets and hats, you can see, because it's not exactly warm. And then this is the Annapurna hill. You get up 3 in the morning and trudge up the hill to get up and see the sunrise. And of course, they have their coffee place, which is very busy. And then you watch the sunrise. It was very windy, very cold. I guess it's like 5 degrees, maybe wind chill was below 0. This is only at 10,000 feet in October. But it was really quite beautiful. Mirja decided she'd rather stay in bed that morning. You did, that's right. So this is the guy who comes by on his burro, and he's talking to our guide Vishnu here. Vishnu is really, really, really very sweet guy, and he is training his burro because they're going to have a burro race pretty soon, and so he's up there training for this. For animal. And here you see they're carrying bags of rice and propane tanks. And then you can see a little bit off the side one of our carriers here with but they have this strap that goes across their head, and they carry almost everything with that. They'll kind of stabilize sometimes with their arms, but they hardly ever carry weight on their shoulders or their arms. And they have this strap that carries everything, and my whole body hurts just thinking about that. Really beautiful sunrises. Just again, look at the system to heat the water, which is very, very common. And this is just to look out our window, and we wake up one morning. And it's a little hard to see, but off here is fishtail. And again, we just orient ourselves by where we were, because we actually, our height, we went up this valley and then kind of curved off this way. So right before we got to the very top, we're at the base of Machu Picchu, which is that mountain. I kind of missed it, but this lady had just picked up a stick and chased the monkeys away. We got monkeys all over the place, and we are fighting with deer right now. We decided to kamikaze right through our plastic fence into our garden because we got apples there now. And they just run right through this fence. They'll bounce off 3 or 4 times, and then they just put their nose in and they go right through it. Try to keep monkeys out. These, they're smart and they can climb, and oh my gosh. So anyhow, she just chased them off with a stick, but they'll be back real quick. So there's fishtail, but you can kind of see it. Again, from the direction you look at it, it looks like a knife edge, or it looks like this kind of a notch. And here's one of your few flat spots, and they're playing badminton, one of these big sports in Asia, which we don't see except for like the Olympics, once in a while. But very happy, very peaceful. This country is very much like India, largely Hindu, a little bit of Buddhism. I don't know, crime, danger, just like zip, very, very nice, and they really seem, pretty industrious, happy. And here's these ladies come along with their baskets. They make these baskets and they load them up with grain and gravel. I'll show you something later on. It's just unbelievable. They're working the fields all around. This is a little shrine temple thing. You're supposed to walk around it 10 times for good luck. And I think there was a big suspension bridge right near here that Deanna was very skeptical about suspension bridges. So she was probably walking around a few more times than we did. And then here's things just laying out to dry right in the middle of the city, and the courtyard of the hotel. And then you run into a German bread bakery coffee shop, which actually is really good. German from way back came and fell in love with the place. So you see here, suspension bridge. I don't think that was the longest one, but it was pretty good. And here we are with Deanna, and she's scoping it out. Okay, so that's not the longest. Yeah. And that's what it looks like when you're on it. And this is the example of some other bridges. This is a couple of logs underneath. Put all these smaller pieces of wood across it. Put a couple of other logs on top. Kind of strap it or nail it together a little bit. And there's your bridge, and they use what nature provides, right? This is a different one. I'll show you an example later of a guy carrying these. This is square, hollow tubes of steel, and they just laid a bunch of these across and kind of tied them together. Came by this waterfall. This isn't even all of it. It was just the entire side of the mountain just leaking. It was just very beautiful, and another spot where the locals came to. Spiritual place. Here's monkeys on the trail. Don't leave your backpack sitting out. They will open it up and be in there quick. And this is kind of your shower toilet area. Again, I don't know how they got this washing machine up there, but they have unlimited electricity. So it's interesting because for these areas they'll have, and I'll show examples of it down the road here, but they have water coming down the mountain all over the place. They use it to drive the generators and get all the electricity. But since it's coming constantly, they don't have storage. They just leave all their lights and everything on all night long, because why not? It's free, and why turn off the generator? Play games. The locals and the guides would settle down, and a lot of money exchanged hands. A lot of excitement here. I had no idea what it was. And then this again is a common area where the guides and their helpers just take really good care. They come and get your order, they run the kitchen, they'd be helping out with everything, they get your tea, they do all this stuff, and then when we're warm in bed, they would hang around and get their food, and then all just on the benches, the tables, the floors, sack out, and that's where they sleep. So pretty close to the top even, here you got your satellite dishes, your telecommunications stuff, which work all the way right up to the top. Kind of getting slow, and you had to pay for it, $1 an hour, whatever. The helicopter going up in the valley, you could get flights. I think they said a helicopter is about $2,000 an hour if you can hire to operate it. And so some people would do this and they would just take a flight, like even from Kathmandu, and zip up to the base camp of Everest or here. But they're also used very commonly for evac flights. Some of the military copters can get up to 22 or 23,000 feet now because they take out all the seats and put on a lot of fuel. But it's pretty hard to operate once you get up to a certain point because the air's so thin. And this is Machu Picchu base camp at the base of that Fishtail Mountain, which we went by on our way. We went up a little higher off to the left here. And then this is getting into the valley of where we were going. And the air is getting kind of thin. Talked to a friend who had done this 10 or 15 years ago, maybe more. And when she went up, there were no building trails. There were just tents everywhere. And so this was actually that we stayed in. I think it was, they just opened really. And it was actually quite nice, as basic as it was. And it had an entirely new thing from anything that we'd seen. The main area is over here, and again, it's heated. None of this is heated. Bathrooms are in here somewhere, but they had, can't maybe see too well here. This is like 4-inch thick foam with aluminum cladding on both sides. And so it actually had insulation. So you'd be in these very small rooms, like 3 or 4 bodies or more. They would, space is limited. So if you've got a bed in your room that's not being used, somebody's gonna come in and take it. We had that happen a couple of times. And then this is where they do the hang the laundry to dry on a sunny day. And they just, you can't see it here. These are just, they just threw the sheets just out all over the place. So there's all these sheets around. It looks like you think you're in some sort of disaster zone where a bunch of dead bodies, but that's just where they dry the sheets. And so something I should say with they have in most of the places then this water that comes down and provides their energy running through pipes and all and into the generator. When you get up this high, that doesn't work anymore. It's all frozen. So now you got solar. And so up here, if you wanted to charge your phone or whatever, you had to really get in there and talk to them early because you had to pay your $1 so they could plug it into like with the brick during the day or overnight. Good luck. There's this little charging, battery was not going to last that long, and they didn't have much else. But I got up sometime in the night, just took a picture like of our lodge here and then the mountain, and it's pretty majestic. Very hard to, with a picture, show that you're just in this bowl of gleaming mountains. As freezing as it was quite impressive. And you really knew you're up there. These guys are our carriers, just smiling, friendly. They're about Mirja's size, and I don't know what they're carrying. I mean, we had our stuff, but they're also carrying all their other stuff and the sleeping bags, and they just smile and go, and you can see it's just a strap around their head, and that's it. And then they go, and this is, they get like, it's like a very, very strong kind of tie deck or something that they just make the strap on, and then they tie ropes onto it. And then that's fishtail actually, with the sun just coming up right over the top of it, right through the split in the tail. And then we're hiking back down. So this is an example of the water. The river, they will divert off to the sides to water. They kind of run it in through a bit of a gate, and they're trying to kind of get the sediment out. Then it pours out through a tube into another pool where just it's cleaner water. And you can see that's a tube that's running down from there. And then this will run along your trail or the river, or some of them come straight down off the mountain, depending on what situation you're in. And then it'll run along the trail, and it'll cross the trail and go below you, go above you, and then you get to some little village down the way, and it runs down the hill and into this generator system. And this is going to just, all these wires go shooting off all over the place to wherever they can get it to, and that's their energy. It's a basic room, comfortable enough, and you're so tired you sleep really well. There's no problem with that. And then this is just an example of the gas. Here's your tank, here's the wire, here's your shower, and you plug in your coins or your rupees or whatever. They flip the switch, you see the flame go on inside the thing, and you have hot water for 2 minutes, and you shower fast, and then you dry off because once that water goes off, it's cold. And then this is a guy carrying some of those steel tubes that they made the bridge out of, and you can't quite see him because he's hidden behind it. But this is the guy behind here, and he's got that strap around his head somewhere here. And he, kind of leans forward, otherwise he's dragging on the ground. And for the really heavy stuff, you'll see them, they'll put this on the sides of the burrow, and they'll be on either side, and then they'll actually dragging on the ground behind them for some of the big loads. And then that's fishtail again as we're heading out down the valley. Just really beautiful flowers hanging on the trees. So you can see down here, the guide will say, well, another hour and a half or whatever, we're going to be down at that like hotel looking place. There's a suspension bridge there. And so you kind of point down saying that's where we're having our snack and that's where we're having lunch. And behind that mountain over there, that's where you're having dinner. And you realize you're doing this, Mary just hates thinking about vertical gain, but that's what you get. It's a very mountainous country. And so it's a suspension bridge, but then way down below that was where you get to go if you want to do another 800,000 feet vertical to get down to the hot springs, which were actually really, really nice. But that's, if you finish your whole really tough day, and then it's just another, 1,000 feet up and down to the hot spring. So this is one of the big suspension bridges. And see here, we had to let the burros go first. If you don't want to be on a suspension bridge, it's the burros. So you let them all get all the way across the bridge before you go. The bridges are really, really solid. And they got some really good cables right underneath where you're at, steel pieces across. See some of these guy wires coming out to the side. There's a big web out to either side also that prevents them from being able to swing. And actually within this bridge right here, there's probably 5 cables that are 1.5 inches maybe. So they're pretty substantial with some really good anchoring on either side. Here's Diana deciding if she wants to go, and Vishnu is offering to help her across. And here's Igor on the other end, walking her. Igor is just trying to figure his name. Igor's like Henry Kissinger. He had this very dour, rubbery face and the greatest sense of humor. He was just such a funny guy. He didn't go up to the top with us. He smokes about a pack a day. He got up to the last camp before we were going to go to the top, and he said, guys, I think I'm just going to hang out here, which was really good. And Diana's the really eager hiker. He would just plod along very slowly, very slowly. So this is an example, you see it here, of our guide. He's shimmying up this pole. They make a hole in the ground. They stick the tree in there, and they couldn't quite get the wire. It's very heavy, actually. It's their electrical wire, and they're running it across the road to their yard. And so he just went up that tree like a monkey and helped them then get it up on the top there. Okay. So interesting. In the beginning, you get bottled water, and they were bringing it up like from Pokhara, and I thought, you gotta be kidding! They got all these burros and everything they got to carry, and they're carrying all this water. But at a certain point, you got this. This is the thing where a women's group in Gandruk is doing this ozonation process. Again, they got unlimited electricity, and so they were using this ozonation to be able to purify the water, and then it made money. And then they did good things in the community, kind of like a Rotary group, from being able to provide that clean water. So I thought made a whole lot more sense. They got water, electricity everywhere. Why are you lugging it up from Pokhara? And then you can't. It's open defecation free zone. So we're making progress on many fronts here. So Gandruk was a place where obviously a lot of locals came and they would dress up in the old customs clothes and take a lot of pictures. So many pictures and selfies going on, as you'll see all over Asia. If you ever travel, it drives you just nuts. How many you like to take a picture of these people doing their selfies, and they're taking 28 different versions of the selfies while you're trying to get a picture without people in the way. And this is quite a party place. They had people out singing and dancing around fires late into the night. This is one of a little hard to see, probably one of the very original old wheels. This is the creek or river coming right down, and then this big old wheel spinning from the water going past it to provide energy. Looked ancient. A big, huge, beautiful moth. They did have some really big, beautiful butterflies. That's just to give you an idea of the size of one of these straw baskets and all the stuff that they can put in it. Just some of the typical fields, it's just tiered, to get their flat spots, which then can flood with the water and all. Very little begging, which is great. This is an older woman who was saying she's kind of ill and was asking for some help, and our guide dug into his backpack and got some antibiotics out for her. I think it would have helped, but I have no idea what was going on. And then this is fish hook again as we're heading on out. It was just so interesting, just kind of turn around the trail and look and see this big gleaming thing there. So this is again part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Here's a nice part of the road they're widening. How they're going to widen this out to more than the two minimal lanes it is, I don't know, because it's like this. It's a little strip of road, and then it's this. And if you don't have that, this is what you got. I mean, your wheel is literally 6 inches away from this, and that's about a 300 drop. And this is all over the place. And the roads are all rutted and bumpy. And so when you're going past one of these and it's rutted and your butts go, you're like, oh man, I hope that it stops about right there because it's kind of hairy. And again, the construction going back to the other way with these, tunnels that would make a huge difference from this. And then the satellite dishes for having your internet work, no matter where you are in the world anymore. And then back to the big city, here in these huge stacks, I don't know, whatever that is, but gotta be heavy. And all the crazy wires, there's a good example of wires on that. I don't know if this video will show. This is a woman smaller than Mirja's size with this pack on. They are shoveling gravel into her basket. And she's gonna restart, walk around the corner and go about 200 yards and unload it. This is what they carry is unreal. Most of the developing world, the kids wear uniforms for school. I think it's fantastic. You think of all of the angst caused by what am I going to wear and how am I going to be cool and how am I going to look cooler than the other person. I just love the uniforms. And here's a guy carrying an entire armoire on his back with that strap. And then here you see these bracings on the building. So, you see that this from earthquake, the facade fell off. These bracings are everywhere around, and this is a historic building, and so these kind of 4x4s kind of splinted together, bracing the building up, and it's still being used for its official duty. My kids, one of my favorite things to use for scrapping stuff together is old bicycle tubing. It's just amazing. So this is just a good example. It's not just me. And then just some of the really cool buildings. This was in a city about 50 miles east, very a UNESCO site. And really a cool spot. They have a street that was, all brass and pots, and a street that was all textiles, and a street that was all pottery, and a street that was all leather. And so you get Tanner's Row and that sort of thing, and you understand why. And then they have all these very small, efficient vehicles. Again, motorcycles loaded up to the gills. In the rest of the world, again, you'll see a whole lot more women in the military and police. Which is just a very, very common thing. Get the signal to cut here. Parents watching at the graves. An old well in the middle of the city. Here's an example of a crack in the building, and then there's a lot worse, and they're living there. A guy in the street sewing while his customers, watch. This is a tractor that they built the back of a truck onto, and it goes chugging through the city. You see these just all over the place. Lady working her loom. Very friendly lady wanted me to come in and do this. This is the size of her shop. It's about 5 feet wide. And here's the big kilns where they're making pottery. This is the guy who makes these cups in about 20 seconds. Bike shop, about 8 by 8 feet. Got everything in there you need. And there's just a beautiful park at the end where the wealthy Nepalis go to hang out and a little bit of peace and quiet. And this is the interesting thing. They have these all over the country. Big bamboo poles, and they make a swing set out of it. Beautiful country, a lot of work. Glad we did it when we were 66. Mary said, I'm not doing that again.
We did. Congratulations. An adventure. I'm inspired. I don't know if I'd do it, but I'm inspired. Okay, well, yes, Kathy.
I want to say thank Steve and Mirja because it's put all these pictures together. But I would also like to invite anybody else who does this trip. I love these and I hope that you feel the same about our little travel adventure. They're so, they just share what's going on in our world.
Yeah.
Hear about Lebanon and Israel.
Oh, yeah, Trent's next. All
Well,
right.
let me get it organized in my head and on my, and then go put it together.
They could save their breath of fresh air from the political forums that we
Yes.
have, so.